Hi, everybody. I'm Aiba, a pediatric sleep consultant and author of This Book in Japan. Today, I am here with Dr. Mai Uchida, who is a mother of two beautiful boys and the director of Pediatric Depression Program at Massachusetts General Hospital and an assistant professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Uchida, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me.
Yay. Thank you, Mai. So much is going on in the world right now, but I want to focus on racism. It's a very hard topic for everybody to face, and especially when we have kids. I don't even know what the right way to bring up the subject or what words to use when talking about racism. And I'm having a very difficult time processing all the information and how to exactly bring up the topic to my children. So today I will be asking a few very important questions to Dr. Uchida. So let's just begin.
Let's do it.
First question, how should we talk about racism to kids?
Yeah, that's the big question. Well, like so many people in the world, I've also been very emotionally affected by the current events. I have two amazing children, Taka, who is a 5-year-old boy, and Genji, who is a 3-year-old boy. And my husband Jacques and I were talking about how, upset we are about what's going on. Might have been last week, the week before. And when Jacques and I were talking about this, our son just realized that the tone of our conversation is quite different from what he is used to. And he kind of asked us, he said, Mommy, why are you so mad and sad? Which is really kind of amazing that he could kind of sense that tone and he could ask that question so straightforwardly. And that turned into a very honest conversation about racism with him. So this is a very timely and an important topic to me personally as well. So I'm really excited to tack out some ideas today. Yeah. So, when we're talking to children about racism, the aims are pretty clear. Aim number one, we have to tell them that racism exists, just, the simple fact that it exists. Number two, teach them why it is bad. Yeah. And then 3, help them develop empathy for those who are receiving racism. I know how hard of a topic for parents it is because it's an uncomfortable topic for very obvious reasons. But I would say that, keep in mind that your discomfort is yours as an adult, and it may not be a discomfort for your children. The discomfort is something that you as an adult feel because you know how terrible racism is, and it's such a sad topic to discuss. Or maybe it's uncomfortable because you feel like you may not have the right knowledge, or maybe because you feel guilty being privileged in certain ways. And I would say all these thoughts are normal, and I absolutely feel all of them myself as well. But in the end of the day, go back to the 3 simple points that I mentioned. Even with our guilt and potential lack of knowledge and discomfort, can we still tell our children that racism exists? It is bad, and that empathy is important. I think we can despite our discomfort. So I encourage you to not let your own discomfort take away this opportunity for your children to talk about this. Yeah. So I would kind of start there.
Okay, so I would definitely do that too. Like I feel so discomfort with everybody, with everything that's going on, and it's my discomfort, and it's fine talking to the kids about it. So thank you. So the next question.
Yes.
So how can we tell them about the existence of racism so that kids can understand?
Yeah, another big question. Yeah, well, I would say that anything that we discuss with our children is better communicated when it is concrete. It's really hard to start these kind of a conversation without a context or in a vacuum. So in our family, when our son asked why we are angry and sad, we showed him the photo of the murder of George Floyd. Yeah, and I myself kind of thought about, is it good to show him such a graphic thing or not? And we decided to do so because we needed a concrete and visual starting point, something that he can see and he could ask questions about. We decided not to show him the video of the murder. We felt like that would be too much for us as a family to watch. But the photo we showed him, we told him that his name is George. His name is George, and we told him what happened to George. We showed them the photos of the protests and discussed why people are so angry. We also showed them pictures from the times of slavery and segregation and discussed the history as much as we can. It's also important to keep it personal with our children. It can't be just they. It has to be like we or he or me, and it has to be personal in some way. So we brought it back to how this applies to our own family. We told him that in terms of the segregation and the history of Black history, we told him that the only reason why us Asians, which are kind of the other minorities per se, the only reason why we can live here and be here and do what we do is because of the civil rights movement, where the Black men and women fought so hard to end segregation, and they included us non-white, non-Black minority people in this as well. And that's why we could live in Boston, and I can have the job that I have, and we could go to the places that we want to. So I again kind of brought it to how it relates to us when we're discussing about the history. We also talked about the skin tones of our friends by mentioning his friends, and we talked about who has a lighter skin tone and who has a darker skin tone because of their different heritage. And we talked about what it means to have a lighter or darker skin tone in America. Again, we talked about how this applies to our family because, again, we need to make it personal for them. So we talked about, as Asians, we have this kind of a skin tone, and it kind of fits in here, and that we have both disadvantages and privilege just because of this. We heartbreakingly told our son that how by him being Asian, there will be times that he will be erroneously perceived as inferior or weak or maybe not attractive, well, he's actually amazing, and I can't stress this enough. Our sons, both of them, Taka and Genji, are amazing beings and amazing children that I'm so proud of. Anyhow, so we talked about how even though they're amazing, that because of their skin tone, they could be erroneously perceived as inferior or weak. And this may indeed limit how he and his brother could become or do in the future. Yeah, so there may be limits associated to them because of their skin tone, and it was really hard to discuss about that. Well, it's a reality. It's a very sad reality for them.
But your son is 5 years old, right?
Yeah.
How did he say something about that? I mean,
he said why. He said, yeah, he said why, but I think we really emphasize that this is an erroneous perception, that this is not anything that is based on truth, and it usually is done by people who don't know him, or maybe we're trying not to know him because they're making assumptions. So we talked about it in that way, and it didn't seem to damage him, to say the least. Yeah. So, while we discussed about those disadvantages associated to his skin tone, we also talked about how, although that's really frustrating and unfair for him and for us, we actually have it so much better than some others, because in regards to safety, the theme of safety, Eastern Asians are not perceived as dangerous or threatening. Dark-skinned people, particularly Black boys and men, are often perceived as dangerous, even when they have done nothing wrong, and even when they're kind, gentle, and smart. So for many, many, many years, Black men and boys have been killed just because they're Black, without any other reason. In George's case, coming back to the photo of George's murder, in George's case, George was Black. And even though he didn't do anything bad or wrong, the police put him down on the ground, put their knee on his neck so that he won't move, and they didn't listen when George said that he couldn't breathe, and George died because of it. And this is not okay. Like, none of this is okay, and this is so sad. And I told him that's why I'm so sad and mad. We told both of our children that when people assume something bad about someone just because they look a certain way without actually knowing them, that's called racism. And when people are bullied because of how they look, because of their ethnicity, that is called racism, and that is not okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Totally agree. And thank you for all the advice, and thank you for, giving me like the conversations that you really had with your son.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mad. It's just I kind of, it's been a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I still get so emotional about, George's, murder.
Yes.
And it's hard to just, hear and see what it is. So yeah. But I mean, talking about it, I think it makes me feel better.
Sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. So, how can we help them understand that racism is bad? Like, for example, like my son, like he's like, my friends are Black, I have Asian friends, I have American friends, I have friends that are like, what's that? Like they're friends.
Right. Yeah, excellent question. Well, I think to understand how bad it is, we need to make the issue relatable and personal to them. Maybe our sons have not received racism in an overt way yet, thankfully or not thankfully. We all have experience where we have been mistreated, even at a young age. So I think using those examples would be a good starting point in talking about how it is bad. So in our case, we asked our kids, how would you feel if your teacher scolded you in front of the class, even though you didn't do anything wrong? Or how did you feel if, would you feel if your teacher assumed that you took something from the class, even though it wasn't you who did it? How would you feel if you're waiting for your turn on the slide, but kids just cut in, and they tell you that you can't go, even though you've been patiently waiting? Obviously, they said that they would be frustrated. And I told them that these types of examples happen all the time for Black kids, where a powerful person, like a teacher, a police, or just other people in general, they do not give them the same kind of chance as other kids, or they assume that they're bad without any evidence. And then we told them that and asked them, do you think that's good? Do you think that's bad? And of course they get that it's bad. Yeah. And another suggestion in making the issue relatable to you and your children is using history and your own race or ethnicity. Yeah, so we all relate more to things that happen to people we resemble. I think that's the reality of it. So for our household, we talked with our kids about the Japanese American internment camps during World War II. We said back then, Japanese American people, even though they had done nothing wrong and they were American, they weren't even Japanese, not that that made a difference, but they were American, they were Japanese American. They were taken away from their homes and they were told to live in a place with bars around them, and everything they owned were taken away, and they weren't given like proper medical care in these internment camps. So some people died in there. Do you think that's fair? Clearly it's not fair, and they get it. I think maybe more so because we're talking about quote unquote our people in a way. Yeah. And I guess unfortunately every ethnicity has some version of this story in the long history of mankind. So it may help to bring those episodes or moments of history where your ethnicity or your type of group of people were treated with unfairness of racism. Again, here to try to develop empathy, we need to make them feel like they have a stake in it, and they take it personally. Yeah.
So to take it personally. So did you show them pictures of?
We did, yeah.
The Japanese
internment camp, yeah.
Wow. Okay, because I feel like, oh wow, that's a lot for a 5-year-old. But does he say, oh, it's frustrated, or like I feel mad, or does he say that as well?
Yeah, I don't remember if he said that it was frustrating. He asked me he asked very simple questions like they took their house away, or they all had to go to this place. They couldn't get out. Yeah, and he also said like, would that happen to us? And I said that very likely not, or very unlikely, because of the civil rights movement. Yeah. And so we had to reassure him that we love our house, we love living here, and we will very likely live here for a long time, and we're not going to be taken away. But it did happen to the people of his great grandparents' generation.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. So another question: how can we help kids develop empathy for those who are discriminated? I mean, empathy is, I think it's very hard to teach empathy.
It is.
Right? Yeah. I'm always like, okay, I'm giving examples and I tell them, what's, nice, or like what's empathy, but this is very hard.
Yeah, I agree. I think the question to ask here is how do you think that person feels, and how would we want to be treated if we were that person? And I would just keep on coming back to those 2 questions. I told our kids to use their super imagination power because they have an amazing one, and told them that it's really hard to know how it feels unless you've experienced it yourself. But even when you don't exactly know how other people feel, we can imagine them as much as we can, and imagining is really important. Trying hard to imagine is really important. If using human examples, like, again, we talked about the history, we talked about how it relates to us, but if human examples seem too much for your particular child, my suggestion is to use books or animals or like movies as an example, you could ask them, how do you think this character felt at this time? How do you think that, they wanted to be treated by this person when this happened? And, keep that dialogue in your conversation when you're, watching a movie or reading a book. Even like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is fine. I use the animals here. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was never invited to play reindeer games. And I feel so badly for Rudolph. We might want to ask our kids, how do you think Rudolph felt? How do you think Rudolph wished that he was treated? How could you be a good friend to Rudolph if you were in Santa's village? And whatever that your children like as a story or a song or a movie or a character, human or non-human, I'm sure there's a way to insert this type of a conversation into that.
Yeah. So how would you feel? How would other people feel? Feelings.
Right.
We're talking about feelings is important.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So what would you say when your child is on the receiving end of racism?
Yeah, that's a heartbreaking topic.
We might get some, you never know.
Right.
We're Asians.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, there are a few tiers here, I think, that we have to think about. When there is clear bullying and if there's any safety issues involved, I would say hold no punches and just go protect your child. Use all your rights to protect your child by involving the school, the community, or even leaving the community if you need to. Just do what you have to and hold no punches. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't worry about how you're going to be perceived or whatever. In those moments when there's clear bullying and safety issues involved, your job as a parent to go in and protect your child. So I would say go. Yeah. And those cases are really also heartbreaking. But then I think the ones that are a little harder to navigate are the ones that are less obvious in terms of making decisions of what to do. Yeah, so I guess here, first and foremost, I think the end message of your conversation with your kids when they're the receiving end of racism is that your child is awesome. Like that has to be the end message. Whatever you talk about in the beginning, in the middle, and the end, the message has to be that your child is awesome. You are awesome. Yeah, as parents, protecting and building your children's self-esteem is one of our most important jobs. And we sadly can't rely on just the society for doing this, because societal standards of how you get to be perceived as good or better or cool even are quite limited, and it may be different from what your child brings to the world. So tell him or her every day what they bring to the world. I might say, don't listen to them, listen to me and daddy, because we know you more than anyone else. And we know how incredible and amazing you are. And I'll keep on talking about that, keep on saying that to let them know that they deserve all the self-esteem that they have. And no matter who says what, that's just the fact. They're amazing. That's it. Yeah. And I guess for I don't know if manageable is the right word, but for manageable cases where maybe it's not bullying per se, but it's something very bothersome that your child is being told, you should still take it seriously and make everyone involved aware of it, that it is not okay. Even small matters are not okay when it involves racism. So you should have that conversation at a larger level as well. That you could also give your children some lingo or zingers to talk back. I wish I had better zingers, and I always fantasize about that moment where I could really clap back at that person, but I'm not great at it. But I have some examples here. A part of my childhood was in Europe. I lived in Switzerland for some time, and I frequently was told flat face in a demeaning way. So over time, because it happened so many times, I developed a talk back phrase that went something like, so they say that I have a flat face, or, they call me flat face. I tell them, well, flat or not, I have all functioning facial parts. My eyes, my nose, my mouth, I have all functioning facial parts. Your nose seems deeper and narrower. Your eye socket seems deeper. I'm glad that you and I both have all functioning facial parts. Can we just celebrate how lucky we are to have functioning facial parts? Like, can we get a hallelujah? Kind of just said that, and they're like, okay, like, the conversation's over, and they usually backed out. So yeah, so
that's awesome. I see that.
Yeah, I think it's a little too long, but I still said it. Yeah, and then, you know what, particularly in Europe, sometimes in the US as well, I don't know how many times I received this, the slanted eyes, as a demeaning gesture for particularly Eastern Asian people, right? So particularly in my childhood in Europe, I think it was almost kind of considered to be okay to do that, or it wasn't, but again, so many times that I received that gesture, which bothered me. For that, I decided to go with, I understand you're doing that to mock the looks of the people from my continent by exaggerating how different they look from the white look, which you considered as the norm. But, I am right in front of you. I am right in front of you. Tell me, do I actually look like that? And I said, if you actually stop doing this, because I don't think you can really see me through those eyes. If you stop doing this and open your eyes and actually look at me, you can see that I don't look like that. So, there we go. And yeah, so I would say that even if you don't even actually use these phrases, it feels good to think about them and fantasize that perfect moment to deliver these type of back.
True.
So it is an empowering thing to think about, and it could be actually be a fun, not fun, but fun activity as a family, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, so that's that. But let me.
Did you talk to your mom about this?
I did.
You did. And you talked with your mom and came up with this, or did you come?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
She had her versions, but we came up with different versions of similar statements together.
Oh, by the way, my mother is also a psychiatrist.
That's right. She's a psychiatrist in Japan. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so she and I'm not sure if I would say we had fun coming up with these, but she definitely contributed to these phrases, and I did laugh during those moments when we were coming up with these things. Yeah. So yeah, so that's that. Well, but let me kind of come back to the fact that even the small matters are just not okay. Yeah, even if you deliver the perfect clapback phrase, it's still just not okay. And whether to tell the other parent about this, tell the teachers about this, talk to the superintendent. I understand that it's probably going to depend on what's going on and how much trust you have for your school or district, or the responsible adults there. I still do encourage you to talk with the responsible adults in the system, because it is just not okay to be treated with racism, and it's the adults' responsibility to protect their children. So even for small matters, I would say bring it up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if it happened to my child, in terms of my children receiving racism from other children, I don't know what I would say, and it's hard to know unless you're in that moment. But I guess I might say to the other parent something like, I am as uncomfortable telling you as you're hearing this, but I felt that our discomfort should not stop us from having this conversation. My child told me that your child called him a racial slur, which really, hurt his feelings. So, I'm not here to judge or punish your child. I'm not here to judge or punish your family. I would appreciate if you could talk to your child about this, because I trust that you and your family believe in the diversity and kindness of humankind. And I would say thank you, and I would kind of leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would take that down and use it when we need to.
Yeah.
I really like that sentence. Not making other people feel bad. Wow, thank you so much to learn. Thank you. So, how can we discuss about how violent some of the protests have become?
Sure.
Yeah. It's hard watching that as well.
Yes, it really is. Yeah. We showed the kids the picture of the protests, and we talked about these people are really mad, but our kids definitely noticed, like, why is there fire in this picture? Why is this window broken? And they absolutely noticed that. So that's a tough topic as well. Well, I would say obviously we're gonna tell them that we shouldn't break anyone else's property, and we should never hit or kick people. Like, violence is not okay. We also talked about some of these stores that were broken into were small businesses that were, a lot of them were also owned by minorities, and they were waiting to reopen after being shut down for 3 months in this COVID crisis. So it's terrible that this happened to them, and they deserve nothing. They did not deserve this at all. They didn't do anything to deserve this. So, while I started with that, I emphasized the conversation about why people are angry rather than how people are angry or why people are angry. I asked them, have you ever felt so angry that you wanted to punch something or break a window? Obviously I told them don't do that, but have you felt like you wanted to punch something or break a window? What would make you so angry that will make you break a window? And I told them that for me, for mommy, if I had to be worried if Daddy and Taka and Genji could be killed without doing anything wrong, and that we've been telling everyone how angry we are for such a long time, but people don't seem to get it. And, not only getting it, but they talk about it as if we somehow deserve it. If that is happening, I will be so angry that I will want to break a window. So I told him that. I also explained that many of these acts were done by people who wanted to make the situation worse. They wanted people who support the protest or who don't support the protest to fight even more. So it may not be just the anger that is contributing to these broken windows and fires that are erupting. There may be more of a different motive behind it. So I did insert that in there as well. But again, I focused that conversation about why people are angry and why people are so angry that they want to break a window. Yeah. I think similarly to the violence associated to the protests, some families might be worried about how social distancing is not observed in the protests, some of them. And this is all important too. The frontline healthcare workers have worked tirelessly with such limited resources, some literally wearing garbage bags, some also not taking salary because most healthcare institutions have not been making a lot of money during this time. So they really have devoted their self to trying to end this pandemic. And And yes, the best way to honor them is to do our part in ending this pandemic by respecting social distance. Well, all of this is true. I again encourage you to come back to why these protests are happening rather than why. I didn't have this conversation because our kids didn't ask, but I might ask the kids, if they were to ask, what would make you feel so angry that you feel like you're not going to follow any rules, even when those rules are made to protect you, like social distancing? For me, mommy, if I had to be worried that my children or my husband or my father or my friends could be killed by the police and people don't seem to get it, I'll be so angry that I want to yell at the world and make a statement and will stop caring about staying 6 weeks away from people, even though it's a rule that is made to, for the best of all of us, to say that, that would not be a priority. The priority would be to end this injustice that could kill my children. That will be the priority rather than keeping 6 feet away from other people. And we'll talk about the protests are to create awareness as a crowd, to communicate how this injustice needs to stop now, right now. It needs to make a statement by showing how angry we all are, and that just simply cannot be done over Zoom.
We're on Zoom right now. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true. That is so true. And I like how you give like your feelings as well. Like it's not like, well, how do you feel? It's like I would be really angry if I was in this situation. I like how you always put yourself in it so that they can visualize it.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, how can we explain to kids why the slogan is Black Lives Matter and not All Lives Matter? This, I made a mistake as well. So you need to really like look into it to really understand. So I made a mistake as well. So
Sure. No, many adults have, and I think many adults continue to still struggle understanding this. I actually saw a meme on Twitter that explained this distinction really, really well. And I actually don't exactly remember what it said, but I do remember the context. So translating that meme into a child's situation, it would go something like this. So John and his 3 friends were sitting at a snack table at school waiting for their snacks. The teacher gave the other kids some pretzels, but John didn't get any. So everyone else has pretzels, but John has nothing. Here, if all the children said, everyone needs a snack, everyone deserves a snack, that is all true. Everyone deserves a snack. But it doesn't address the fact that all the other kids have snacks, but John still needs a snack. So we should say John needs a snack. And similarly, Black Lives Matter is a movement that aims to address the injustice of how Black men and women are murdered by the police at a statistically significantly higher rate than other races. Of course, all lives matter. Nobody disagrees with that. All lives matter. But this is a movement to address that specific injustice and discrimination. So that's why it's Black Lives Matter.
I like the example. Yeah. It was hard for me to even, kind of get what, Black Lives Matter was. Yeah, even a lot of adults still make mistakes, and but it's like all lives matter after Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So what do you say when kids ask why racism exists? Oh man, this is hard.
That's a big question. This question is actually one of the questions that our son asked. He said, why does racism and, why do bullies exist? That's kind of how he phrased it. And we told him that there are many, many reasons for it. So I don't know if we could cover all of them. But one of the reasons that racism exists or bullying exists is because there's a part of our mind as a human being that makes us want to feel more powerful or stronger or better than others. And sometimes our mind plays tricks on us to feel more powerful and better than others by thinking that other people are less important and less cool than us. To this, our son responded like amazingly. He said, but that doesn't make you stronger or more powerful. He said, you know, regardless.
Your son is amazing.
Yeah, he said, it doesn't make you stronger when other people are weaker. It doesn't make you stronger when other people are stronger. Like, you know, you're strong as you are, and other people are that. And so, you know, he said that it by us kind of pushing down other people, that doesn't make us stronger or more powerful, which like kind of like speaks to the core of this.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Like, wow.
Wise 5-year-old man. Yeah. So to which I responded that that's really true. And again, it speaks to the core of this, but it's actually kind of natural for all of us to feel that way sometimes. And that's definitely not a good feeling we have when we feel that. And it's also not a good way of thinking. So we have to be a good observer of our own selves. We have to know what goes through our mind, how we're feeling. We have to think about how we're feeling and why we are feeling that way. And if we catch ourselves feeling this way at all, in the context of racism or not, we have to pause and think and talk it out with someone that you trust, hopefully me. And yeah, and he kind of nodded through this. Yeah.
Wow, like your son's really amazing. Like,
Really?
yeah, like I don't think my son would ever ask that question. Like right now, like he doesn't really understand what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would probably need to have a good conversation with him.
Sure.
Yeah, but yeah. So, final question. What would you say to parents who are afraid of making mistakes in the conversation of racism? That's like totally me. Yeah.
I'm guilty of that as well, and I think most people are.
Mhm.
Well, I would say that we are bound to make mistakes. We're just bound to make mistakes. Also, social justice is an area that has advanced quite a bit, like decade by decade. While it's too slow for particularly this issue, but social justice is advanced. It is advancing every decade, and I'm sure we're all guilty of, you know, making a wrong comment that hurts someone with or without intention at some point in our lives. And I mean, I can come up with many from my past. I'm like, that was wrong, and it really kind of hurts my heart. But again, everyone has this, so it's just bound to happen. So you know, since it's just bound to happen, please allow yourself to make mistakes, and particularly in your private conversations with your children. And when you realize that you've made a mistake, on that spot or later, just own it and acknowledge it and rediscuss with your children. You can say, remember when mommy told you this? Actually, I did some thinking and reading and realized that was wrong because of this and that. I'm sorry that I gave the wrong knowledge, but I'm happy that we're talking about this again now. How are you feeling? I might just kind of bring it up that way. So again, you know, allow yourself to make mistakes. Because I'm sure that while you make some mistakes, you're also saying a lot of right things in that conversation as well. Yeah.
That makes me feel so much better. Yeah. Yeah, it does. And thank you so much.
Yeah.
I've learned so much, and now I'm like kind of confident in talking to my kids about it. And I think a lot of parents are after hearing this. And do you have any final comments, Mai?
Yeah, sure. Well, I had a great time talking about this as well, and it's such an important topic. Well, I would say that, our children are our future. It's such a cliche, but it's true. Our children is the future, our future. And we have the opportunity to make our future better through them. And it's easy to issue a statement that we stand by you, or whatever. And statements are important. So I'm glad that every institution does issue a statement right now, and it shows how much of a large impact the movement is having. So that's great. But it's easy to make a statement, but change comes from action, and we can all start from our own home and take action in educating our children and having this conversation. So I really encourage you to do so, and I hope it goes well.
Thank you. I am going to try with my family.
Yeah.
I might make mistakes, but I'll acknowledge that. Well, and thank you so much. And I hope to have you back.
Absolutely.
Well,
And
thank you so much. We'll see you.
sounds good. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.